Alrighty, what do we need to buy? Well, we need to buy this kit from Hobby Zone. It is the Super Cub floats. You can buy this kit just about anywhere. Link below for Amazon. I actually got them next day. Super cheap, like 35 bucks. They're gonna come with just about everything you're gonna need. And here's a picture of the floats assembled on my bench. This is a very, very simple kit. Another thing to note, this kit is going to add an additional 270 grams of weight to your plane, so take that in mind. You're also going to need the ability to 3D print something or have someone 3D print these for you. These are two basic brackets. These will allow the floats to be removed and reinstalled so that you can use your plane as a traditional swordfish or with the floats. You're also going to need to order an extra hatch cover. I would probably order extra parts while you're at it. These parts typically take a week to get as everything comes from China. If anybody's out there that could design this and share a 3D print file, that would be fantastic too. If you have an extra front hatch thumb screw, this will work perfect. This is what I used. But if not, you can order one here from Amazon. It needs to be 30 millimeters in length. It's an M4. And then you're also going to need some M3 hardware. Okay, let's get started. First thing we're going to need to do is we're going to have to remove the front wheel from the swordfish. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to make a little pocket for this first 3D printed piece. What we're going to use is a soldering iron, and we're just going to take it and we're going to make this little pocket here. And then this is what the pocket looks like all done. So now that we got that ready, we'll take our razor blade. We're gonna make a little bit of a flat spot here in the back. There's a little bit of a hump, and we'll just snip that off. And then we'll take our 3D bracket. We'll go ahead and test fit it, make sure it fits in there, and it fits snug, and it is now ready to be glued in. Now you can reinstall your wheel at this point. The wheel's not gonna spin, but when you go to land it on grass or street or whatever, it's gonna give you a surface to land on. Moving on to the rear hatch, what we're gonna have to do is trim a little bit off of this hatch so that way the 3D printed bracket can fit in between it and the fuselage. As you can see in this photo, it's not much that you have to trim off. And then here's what the bracket would look like just test fitting sitting on top. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna drill from the back side, and we're just gonna punch a hole through that 3D printed bracket, and then we're gonna use our longer M4 thumb screw, and that is what's going to use to attach everything to the fuselage. This is what's going to allow us to take these floats on and off easily. I also applied some hot glue underneath that bracket to that hatch to hold everything in place and just to add a little bit more security to everything. You'll also notice that that bracket is long enough to cover up the vent. That is to just prevent water from splashing up and getting on the electronics. And here we go, guys. The floats have now been installed into the brackets. All we have to do now is just to securely mount this wire frame to these brackets. So now here on the rear bracket, we're gonna use these wire clips. These came in the kit and you get 2 of them. What we're gonna do is we're just gonna fasten these with some M3 hardware. I used an M3 by 8 millimeter. And then this is what it looks like attached. And they're nutted on the back of it. You could put hot glue, I guess, in the cavity where the wire goes into, but I feel like this is the best and easiest way to secure it. And now moving up to the front bracket, all I did was drill a couple holes, and I just used some wire, some safety wire, picture frame, hanging wire. You could use a zip tie, and this was just super simple and easy. There ain't nothing to it. And here you go, everyone. This is the finished product. Everything is secured, everything is mounted, nothing's flimsy. Pretty proud of myself with this. This was actually extremely easy to do. Other than a couple of 3D printed parts, some cutting, some hot gluing, it can be on your swordfish. Okay, to remove these, what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna cut this safety wire. We'll get that out of the way. And then we'll come to the back hatch here, And all we gotta do is just remove this thumb screw. Lift the wire out of the front bracket. And there we go. Grab our other hatch, put it back on, and now we can fly this regular. And here you have it. Here's your float kit for your Atom RC Swordfish. Piece of cake. Installation is just as easy as the removal. Slide that rear hatch on, push that front wire down, tighten the thumb screw, come back, grab your safety wire, and you're done. So a couple things to point out with this installation. I didn't just mount these willy-nilly. I got lucky where everything was. If you look below on the wing, that is the CG mark. If you look above on the pontoon where the step is, the proper placement of where that step should be is actually important. It should be anywhere from a half to an inch behind the CG. That is how these floats work as far as center of gravity goes, weight and balance. So I was very lucky that just happened to work out. You know, the hatch location, the front wheel, it's almost like it was meant to be. So these are mounted in a certain way to make these floats work, lift off, balance, and everything else. Another thing that's crucial to this whole thing working is the length of the floats. So these floats should be 70 to 80% of the total length of the aircraft. So these floats fit that bucket too as well. And you're probably wondering, Jeff, how do you know all this stuff? Because I went online, I read a bunch of articles, crossed my fingers, and hoped that they were right. So the last thing that's very important is the mounting angle. You want to get the floats parallel to the attitude of the airplane. And in this situation, the Swordfish requires 3 to 4 degrees positive up to fly level. And if you look at the top of the floats compared to the center body line, this pretty much is right on the money. And if this needs to be changed later on, this can be tweaked easily by bending the metal wire on the floats. So another thing that you might want to think about is covering up holes, filling holes, just to protect stuff from water intrusion, because the plane's going to get wet in the water. Also, you need to think about your FPV equipment. If you mount your camera on the very front of the nose, it's going to get water droplets on it. Once you take off, 99% of the time, those water droplets are going to blow right off. It's not going to be a big deal. But mounting it further in the back, this will allow you to kind of protect it. God forbid it lands and the front nose dips into the water. You're not submerging your camera. Also, having a pan system on it is crucial in my opinion. That allows you to pan your camera left or right as you're up in the air to help blow the water droplets off the lens. Another thing that you might want to think about, and this isn't necessary, is I remounted my data link connector, my USB hookup. I hate how it's on the bottom of the Swordfish, and it makes it a pain in the butt to have a USB cable hooked up, and it's kind of balancing on that cable. So I mounted mine in my hatch. My previous Swordfishes, I have mounted it where my FPV equipment is, where my VTX is in that hatch. But mounting it up here is nice. That way I can just kind of hook up to it. Piece of cake, but it's not needed. Also, as you see here, the battery, this is where the battery needs to be for proper CG. And again, this is that ZOHD 5000 milliamp hour battery. Another thing to point out is that the floats are kind of located right underneath the engine nacelles, the motor nacelles. So splashes and stuff from the water are going to kind of splash away, and the ESCs are, I guess, somewhat protected. I would not cover those up with tape or anything. I would let them breathe. Probably the best thing to do is maybe bring a can of compressed air with you, or just kind of hold it in your hand and run the motors when you're done flying after landing to kind of blow any, I guess, residual water off. I don't think it's going to be a big deal. I have landed my airplanes in grass that's been wet, and I have never had an issue. I always just bring them back home and kind of just blow them off and get all the residual water off. Okay, now it's time to do the iNav setup. Some changes that have to be made. First, we need to head to our mixer tab, and we need to set this plane up with differential thrust. This is how we are going to steer and control the plane on the water. So we'll save, reboot, and then you're gonna have these settings over here for yaw. You're gonna make sure to set them at 0.3 and -0.3. You're also gonna make sure that motor 1 is on the left side of the aircraft and motor 2 is on the right, as I'm illustrating up here. This is crucial. If you do not do this, it will not work right. Next, we'll come down here to configuration, and we are going to disable permanently enable launch mode for fixed wing. We don't want it to auto launch. We want to manually launch this. Now let's say you want to use this plane with both floats and regular hand tossing, and you want to have auto launch available. Well, and you don't want to go back and forth in the iNav. You're going to come over here to your modes tab, and you're going to find this nav launch right here. And you're going to set it up on a switch. And by switching that on, that will turn on auto launch and turn it off. Okay, so we got everything done. Everything's ready. We're gonna do a test here. As you can see, get a close up of where this battery is, Allie. You can see that the battery is it's still within the parameters, so that's good. Go ahead and back up for me. We'll do a center of gravity test, and as you can see, it's balancing just fine. So everything's good. So we're gonna go and plug this in. Alrighty. Let's see how it just does across the grass. And because we have differential thrust,
it looks like a snowmobile.
Oh, this is gonna work great. Make sure we got power. We do. And we are off, guys. So one thing about not having a rudder on the floats is that you don't have to worry about dragging seaweed, moss, all kinds of crap in the water. So as you're gonna see here, I'm gonna go over the seaweed. It's gonna drag a little bit on the floats, but it's gonna come off. I'm just testing the differential thrust, trying to get comfortable with it, using my yaw stick and my throttle and being smooth with it. I'm not using a whole lot of input here. I'm still very nervous at this point because I don't want to tip the aircraft. And there you go, that little patch of seaweed or moss came off. And so now I'm just gonna sit here, try to figure out just how this plane is gonna fly and or how it's gonna react on the water. Now, I came here with the intention of flying this plane and taking off and landing on this water, but I'm gonna be holding off on that, and we're gonna save that for another video. I just need to get comfortable with this thing. Again, I'm just still nervous that I'm gonna lose my plane. Honestly, the plane is not even the part I'm worried about losing. It's my freaking battery, the flight controller, the FPV gear, you know, the expensive stuff. But the plane is smooth. And there we go. Now I'm just kind of giving it speed. And once you throttle up, it tracks very straight. It's kind of when you come off throttle is when it kind of turns left or right. But as you throttle up and it gets speed, you know, the plane wants to just go straight. And here we are again. So now my VTX is pretty much has overheated and I'm gonna bring it into the shore. And here we go. We're gonna get it back right over all the moss and boom. There it is. Great success. All right, everyone, this is the end of the video. Next video, I will be taking off
and landing on water. Be honest, I'm a little nervous about it. I don't know if I'm going to land FPV, if I'm going to land line of sight. I don't think I've ever landed a plane line of sight, to be honest with you. So it will be interesting. I do fully believe that this kit will work. It's just going to be pilot skill now. I think what I'll also do is I will go to a big grassy field, something that's kind of mowed, and I might take off and land from a grass field first, because I don't think there's going to be any problem with these floats going across the grass, just as you saw earlier in the video. Again, the link to my Thingiverse page is down below, so you can get these brackets, a link to the floats, and easy breezy, man. You know, $40 in parts and a little bit of time, and you yourself can have floats for your Atom RC swordfish. So stay tuned to the channel, keep an eye out, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye.